yours young, if your mother tell you to do right, you don't want to do it. Something you want to do. You look at what she say, you don't even want to know if she or he is telling you what is right. You don't want to know it. You don't want to hear it because you want to do what you want to do. And so what happens is, as we grow older, because we wasn't listening to our parents' instructions, we do terrible things. And these same people that come out of these houses is what's running this nation, running the world. The things that we see in today in this world is the result of people not accepting Christ as He is. Does that make sense? The things that we see in now, monkeypox, if everybody here, we're going to touch on monkeypox. The aerosols in the air. Raise your hand if you heard about it. Aerosols in the air.
This is an aerosol particle. In real life, you could barely see it. It's just a little speck suspended in the atmosphere anywhere from a few days to several years. It could be dust from a desert, or salt from ocean spray. It could have been blasted out of a volcano, or created during a forest fire. It might have flown out of a factory smokestack, or a truck's tailpipe. Depending on what it is and where it is, an aerosol particle can do some impressive things, like cool the planet by reflecting sunlight back into space, or by collecting water vapor to build a cloud. On the other hand, some aerosol particles trap sunlight and heat the air, thus preventing clouds from forming. Other aerosols can host chemical reactions that damage the ozone layer. And down on Earth, they can even cause health problems such as lung and heart disease. That layer of hazy air pollution above big cities? Yup, it contains aerosol particles. Aerosols, they're tiny, they're powerful. NASA studies them with satellites and instruments on the International Space Station, and with specialized aircraft and ground-based devices. Because when it comes to understanding our environment, our climate and how it's all changing, little particles make a big difference.
Okay, it starts spreading. So why are they spraying aerosol in the air to keep us sick? This is why a lot of people die from coronavirus, because of aerosol. Aerosol inflames the lungs. And so when the coronavirus happens, don't forget to I'm telling you about it. Okay, when aerosol, whenever we breathe in, and aerosols is not but toxin. When we breathe it in, it does something to the lungs, causes mucus.
You know, when I was a kid, I used to see these trails in the sky all the time, and so, oh, that's cool. A jet just went over. And then you started to see a whole bunch of them. And next thing you know, everybody in your neighborhood was fighting and arguing, and you didn't know why. Okay, and you really didn't know why. I mean, everybody was fighting.
And Kylie Jenner famously tweeted out an image speculating that chemtrails might have something to do with the population decline in honeybees.
Right? It causes mucus and inflammation. That's how we die, from inflammation, mucus. It causes a lot of mucus, and when someone catch a flu, a cold, or any virus that's in the flu family, whatever, so much mucus is created that they got to put you on a breathing machine just for oxygen to break through the mucus. When that happens, the lungs collapse. Too much oxygen pressure. It's just like high blood pressure.
Dr. Charles Rouse is our speaker. He is our VSci founding medical advisor, and Dr. Rouse has a tremendous background, not only as a registered pharmacist, but as a doctor of natural medicine. He has studied many years the world of plant medicine and the world of nutraceuticals and the world of natural medicine, and he fully understands both sides of the field here. So when he comes to these calls and brings these pieces of information to us, it's so helpful, because For most of us, we would never learn this anywhere else.
Tonight's topic is inflammation, and more information is really accumulating that truly indicates, medically indicates, that inflammation plays a major role in the development of many diseases, not just arthritis, but we're talking about Alzheimer's disease, heart disease, psoriasis, and even strokes. And that's because inflammation represents a very basic response of the body to the alterations in the cellular environment. And it doesn't matter whether those cells are lining the gums or arteries, we call that atherosclerosis, or the joints, that's arthritis. All of that is inflammation. And the body's most basic purpose for inflammation is to repair itself, as well as defend itself against clear and present dangers. And we have to understand that while inflammation associated with things like arthritis or psoriasis, those are obvious, but it's the inflammation of most concern in modern life that's going unnoticed. So for our BZI family, because we want them to be healthy, tonight we're going to talk about the low-grade chronic inflammation, things that trigger hardening of the arteries, prevent Alzheimer's disease, thwart and don't allow the upswing of cancer, or things that that threaten most people's real quality of life. Inflammation is fire within our tissues, and inflammation is the body's first defense against infection. It's the way the good Lord made us so strong and resistant to so many different diseases. But inflammation can also run like a wildfire out of control. And unfortunately, if that flame keeps smoldering and resurfacing, chronic inflammation can lead to life-threatening conditions. As I mentioned just a moment ago, heart attacks never happen without inflammation first. Cancer does not occur unless inflammation has taken a strong foothold. And we're finding in Alzheimer's research, even though things are tangled up and the brain is discombobulated, it began in its original form with inflammation. And even diabetes, type 1 and type 2 diabetes, there is an inflammatory response in the pancreatic cells and places throughout the bodies when cells become resistant to insulin, like type 2 diabetics. It has a lot to do with inflammation response.
It's just like high blood pressure, that when the heart beats and if you overweighted, or if you got too much sodium or anger or anxiety, the heart beats and the pressure hits the arteries. That's what you call high blood pressure, because it's hitting the arteries. So it narrows cholesterol, high cholesterol as we call it. But if you look at aerosol or coronaviruses together, it kills the lungs, because so much mucus, and the heart pumps fast to try to get that mucus out of the lungs, the water that's collected in the lungs. And before you know it, the heart stops. You have a heart attack, right? Because most people that die from coronavirus, they die from heart failure. Or they drown from their own mucus. That's why they put them on life support. So the air can just go through and punching itself through the mucus, and it causes the lungs to collapse. And they die from it too. You say, is this true? Yes. The reason why you don't know about it is because they spend billions of dollars so you won't know about it. Not only that, they distract you with the things in the world. Like King Charles becoming king, that's a distraction. I guarantee something else is happening around the world that you don't know about. A lot of people that you heard that died of something, if they are part of if they are part of Freemason or the synagogue of Satan, and if they broke the oath, they may have been sacrificed, or they may be in prison somewhere and they killed off their character. Is this hard to believe?
Caramba! I'd like to say something about the current climate of repression and fear.
Put a fork in it. Sit down, Saddam.
Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. That's from the First Amendment to the Constitution. Thank you.
Thank you, Letha. I'm sure your opinion will not go unnoticed.
Simpson, you're under arrest for the violation of the Government Knows Best Act.
I can't believe they put us in jail. It's not a jail. It's a re-education center. We'll be unjustly imprisoned. Check out all the left-wing celebrities. Go to the wrong fundraiser.
Bill Clinton, what are you doing here?
Sometimes it's hard to believe that things like this is happening. Things like this are happening. Sometimes it's hard to believe this, family, but the Bible tells it all. This is what's telling it. Christ said you will hear rumors of wars. There will be pestilence. There will be plagues. There will be earthquakes, tornadoes. It begins to talk about how sin going to increase, hatred, murder. It talks about all this here.
Does the foundation for unprecedented global change truly already exist? The remaining prophecies within the ancient timeline foretell of multiple layers of events that converge to trigger what is often referred to as the tribulation period or the end of days. The first layer of converging global change is the beginning of wars and rumors of wars that result in peace being removed from the earth.
Jesus is giving signs that would indicate that his coming is near, his second coming. One of those is, and you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars, but that is not yet the end. He went on to say, there shall be nation against nation and kingdom against kingdom. But that particular expression, nation against nation and kingdom against kingdom, is actually a Hebrew idiom, and it means world war. Jesus said, world wars will be the sign of the beginning of the end.
And there's going to be some very large wars that are going to be happening on a mass scale. We recognize biblically this is the way that things are going.
We're not talking about isolated skirmishes. We're talking about wars on a global level, many, many wars scattered throughout the world so that the whole world is essentially at war, and rumors of many other wars that will be starting. We're starting to see more wars now and more rumors of wars starting around the world than any other time.
In fact, many of the conflicts we see today are associated with the spread of global terrorism and the threat of attack that could potentially take place in any nation at any time. Unlike regional wars, this new growing threat now affects nearly every person on Earth, and in many aspects directly relates to the unprecedented concept of humankind living in a state where peace is dissipating from our societies and being replaced by fear.
The more these radical terrorists spread around the world, the more people are becoming afraid. I mean, TSA has security, massive security at all the airports. They're afraid that bombs are going to go off in elementary schools, in churches, in buses. And so the more this happens, the more peace is being removed.
Things are getting worse, and we are beginning to see a global outcry for the governments of the world to work together in order to provide peace and safety. foreshadowing the need for dramatic change. But often, change comes through necessity, and according to the sequence of remaining prophecies, that necessity is coming very soon.
Now, he didn't tell us the guts of it, how it's going to accumulate. Now I say accumulation in Spanish. Yes. It is, Christ didn't tell you about technology. In that time, they didn't have technology. Christ seen technology. And that was a way how he explained it in Revelations. He said the angels will fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel. What is flying in the midst of heaven? Think about internet. Christ told us everything. How are we getting messages? How are we getting messages all around the world? Internet. He's told us that in Revelations chapter 14, how it's going to happen. He said that everybody will receive, the world going to receive the mark of the beast. How is it that the world, he didn't give all the descriptions how, because people would have rejected this a long time ago. It would sound silly then, but we see it now. We see it now. And China, they're using technology, AI. You know what AI is?
How the Chinese regime uses AI to control the population. The rapid technological development that artificial intelligence, AI, is currently experiencing is bringing plans closer and closer for total social control that until recently were unthinkable. It is already being done by the Chinese regime, which intends to apply it to the 1.4 billion inhabitants of the Great Eastern Nation. At this point, it is essential to take a look at the crucial technological element that enables human beings to transcend unknown and therefore risky digital frontiers, the microchip.
Somebody tell me what AI is. Artificial intelligence. Now how I say that in Spanish? Artificial intelligence. Y'all know how to say that? It's basically, it is a computer that runs everything. So basically in China, if you look at China as well, they are basically experimenting. That's also because if you did not receive the jab, you could not go and buy and sell. Y'all remember that, right? In 2020 and 21, you couldn't buy and sell. And you had to wear what? A muzzle. If you didn't wear the muzzle, you couldn't go into certain places. Remember? They shut down churches. They shut down churches that preach the truth, but you can be on the app. Come on now. Don't you think you get corona in front of you or behind you? What about restaurants? You had to go to a restaurant with the muzzle on, but you had to take it off to eat. No, what they were doing was testing the waters. They was testing the waters to see how much people will obey. Everything that's happening is a plan. It's a plan, family.
The basis for a comprehensive system of social control that undermines the fundamental rights of its citizens. In 2014, based on recommendations from the State Council, the CCP began implementing a sophisticated classification system to monitor the behavior of its vast population. It seeks to place the social status of each of its members based on the score obtained, according to regulations that it designates as a social credit system. This control was formally raised in 2011 and was announced by the then Premier Wen Jiabao. However, in its beginnings, it was introduced only to monitor creditworthiness, which continues to have substantial deficiencies in the Chinese financial sector. The lack of creditworthiness in society is still quite prominent. Despite being prohibited, commercial fraud, counterfeiting and selling fake goods, making false reports and false claims, and academic misconduct continue to take place, and the people are very dissatisfied, Wen said after a State Council meeting in October 2011. The social credit system is an important component of the socialist market economy system and the social governance system. It is intended to reinforce the idea that keeping trust is glorious and breaking trust is disgraceful, according to a 2015 Chinese regime document cited by Business Insider. There is no mention of the welfare or ennoblement of citizens or the cultivation of human values. Instead, the motivation for the massive investment involved in the mammoth undertaking is the economy, socialism, and governance. Additionally, it implies the quality under the CCP's magnifying glass is trust. The word trust involves the quality of those who have total confidence in something or someone.
Why? Because Revelation chapter 13 tells us that the whole world will follow the beast and receive the mark, and if you don't have the mark, you can't buy or sell. So think about it. When we didn't have the passport, you couldn't even go from country to country without the passport. And this passport was that you got the jab. Now, are people dying from the jab now? Worldwide.